Okay, so for this presentation, we can assume we've already built a really lovely word list, and now what we're going to be doing is doing the word list with the child. So we're going to do this in two parts. First, I'm going to show you how to do the word list when you're sitting next to the child, doing a live lesson with paper. Second, I'll show you how to do some review word activities when you're doing an online or digital lesson. Okay. So let's start with the old days when we used to sit right next to our kids and teach them. Wasn't that nice? Okay, so your word list might look a bunch of different ways. I've printed out a few different versions. For example, here we have a review word list. This is 4x3. I see lots of digraphs and I see a mix of short vowels. On this review word list, I see 4x3 again, I see just CVC words, so short vowels and two consonants. And then I also see how each row has A, I, and O. In this review word list, I see some prompts for the child, likely some behavior and motivation prompts there. I also see that the vowels have been put into red already to support the child. So that's nice. And then on this one, I see multi-syllable words, and I see that the vowels have also been put in red already. So let's go through these, and I'm going to show you what I would ask the student to do. So the general script for review words, or the general routine, is that you ask the child to do some sort of previewing or preparing. So previewing or preparing, that might mean you might ask them to whisper read, or you could say read to yourself. A lot of children have trouble reading in their head, especially our young struggling students, so it's kind of beside the point to ask them to do that. So I kind of pretend to not be paying attention to give them a moment to read it themselves. Other really, really young or impaired students just can't do that step at all. So we do the whole thing together, which is fine. And we just call it, let's do our practice read. And now that we've warmed up, let's do it smoothly. So you're whisper reading, you're reading to yourself, you are marking or highlighting. Some tutors do this after they read the word list, but I don't really think it makes sense to go back and analyze after you read. I think the point is to analyze to support you, to see those patterns and vowels ahead of time, and then to read it smoothly. So this all happens before you, well, I guess this one would be the start one. You know, you're marking and you're highlighting. Then you can say, okay, go ahead, whisper, read, or read to yourself. And then once they do that, you can give them a few different prompts depending on the age and the ability of your student. You could say, okay, let's reread with fluency. Or you could prompt them to scoop. You know, we might be doing 2 and then 2. Or perhaps you'd be coaching them, or sometimes I say, now that you know dim, go ahead and read the whole word list. So if there's one, or the whole row, if there's one word that gave them a little bit of trouble, I might give them that prompt. Now that you know blank, you know, go back and reread that whole row with blank. By me saying that word over and over again, that helps them too. Okay, other things that it helps to do are to have some sort of a tracker. I got a bunch of these at Target last year and they fit beautifully on the word. So there's that little window. So that's a nice little tool. Your finger always works, of course, but sometimes students are resistant to using their finger. I really try to get my kids to have their non-dominant hand, in my case, my left hand flat, paper's at a little bit of an angle, and my right hand is pointing. That's my writing. This is my writing hand, so this is my dominant hand. I'm going to use that for tracking. The whole slunched over, the upside down. I know a lot of kids like collapse into that position. Do your best to have your student in that seated position and with their finger there. If they can't tolerate the finger, sometimes they will drag a pencil or pen, and that's fine. People have done the cutesy things where you put on that little Halloween witch finger and you do that, or you put on some cute plastic ring and you do that, or you put a little star or smiley sticker on their fingertip and do that. Those gimmicks can sometimes work too and help kids. But tracking is a big deal. We always ask kids to track. In fact, I work hard to tell them that tracking is not a babyish thing. It's a strategy for keeping your eyes on the right letters there, getting them in order, and that helps your brain handle those sounds. All right, so if this is my student, for this particular word list, I would say, all right, why don't you go through and find me the vowels in the first row? What vowel do you see? Hey, okay, so you say as you highlight. Good job. Now you're ready to read with ah. Get your tracker out and whisper read to yourself. Ba, l, ap, lap, l, a, ra, l, a, l, a. All right, you ready to read it? Go for it. Bat, lab, rag, lab. Now there was an error there. I said lab instead of lap. So you could have the two choices. You could either error handle right in the moment or error handle when they get to the end of the row. In this case, I'm going to wait till that student got to the end of the row because they were reading at a decent enough pace that we can handle going back to it. If they're like, at, bat, oh, ab, lab, you would want to handle that error right in the moment. They're not going to remember when they get to the end of the row what happened there. So if the pace is really labored, then deal with it in the moment. But otherwise, I usually wait till the end of the row and then we go back. I heard you say lab twice, but look, they each end with a different letter. Which one is lab? Which one ends with b? Yes, this one. That's our noisy lip popper. Okay, so sound out this one again. O, a, p, lap. There it is with the quiet p sound. Okay, now that you know that this one is lap, try reading the whole row again. And they go on and on. Okay, so now as a teacher looking back at this, I can realize, ooh, is this an error that happens a lot for this student, the B and P? And I would write that in my notes. I would mark this wrong in my note, but then also wrote, BP errors, ? And maybe if I saw more of those happen, I would know that that's something I need to zoom in on, or maybe it was just in that moment. All right, let's get ready to read row 2. What vowel do you see? I. Okay, I want you to highlight and make that I sound. Go for it. I. You're ready to read. Get your tracker out. Whisper read to yourself. Blah, 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 pretend did I do that. All right, you're ready to read out loud. Let's hear it. Sip. Wig. Hip. Dim. Good, you got all those words right. Now you're ready to read them a little bit smoother. Now that you got to practice them, let's hear it. And you could have them do it. Now, once the child is making some progress with accuracy, that's when I add in the scoops, okay? Once I kind of hit that accuracy and I can push forward a little bit with the automaticity, then I might add on the scoop part. So I might show them how to do, all right, I'm going to scoop under these two, and then we're not even going to take a breath when we read them. We're going to say, sip wig, hip dim. So do you see how I did that? I looked at them in my brain first, I got the words ready, and then I spat them out nice and smoothly. Sip wig, hip dim. So this is not the same as scooping with sentences, because scooping with phrases and sentences has meaning with it, but this is like a baby step towards that, getting them to like rapidly produce those words and get them out. So sometimes just doing 2 at a time is doable, or some kids will do 3, then 1, or all 4, whatever. All right, I'm going to skip the last row. You got the idea. Now for this particular one, something that sometimes I do with my students is we get some pens out, ahead of time, and we decide, okay, let's find all of our CHs and put them in blue today. Let's find all of our THs and put them in green, and so on and so on. So my student would practice marking Nice job underlining that digraph with one line. Why did you underline with one line instead of 2 lines for each letter? That's right, because the digraph makes one sound, so it gets one line. All right, look for some more. Oh, there's one at the end. And there's another one. Okay, now next up is TH. Look for those THs. TH, TH. You're looking with your eyes. You're seeing these patterns in words. TH, TH. Wow. And then we'll need one more pen. Let's see. We'll do our SH in orange. Shh, shh. Good job. Say the sound when you mark it. Shh, shh, shh. Oh, you are ready to read. So just like in the last situation, I would say get your tracker out. Practice reading to yourself. They would do it. And then I would say read smoothly to me. I would error handle if needed. And then they could reread with fluency. So there's not like the perfect way to do this, because when we observe you, we're going to help you figure out if you're on the right track with your student. The number of words on your word list, whether or not they are scaffolded to have certain lines, including certain patterns, vowels, digraphs, whether you have them reread in scoops or do the whole row smoothly, or whether you just are caring about accuracy and fluency is beside the point at this point. That is all determining on what your child can handle. You want to like get your child to where they're comfortable and then creak them up one little baby step upwards. So when you are observed by Sarah, Liz, and I, you'll be getting pushes in that direction. You know what I mean? Like we'll say, good, we saw your student do this, so now, oh, add this piece on to review word list, or, oh, review word list was taking up a lot of time and that seems like a ton of work. Maybe make it more doable for your student by doing blah, blah, blah. So there are different ways that you can make this activity easier and give your kids more support, and then ways that you can kind of push them and propel them forward. This should not be 10 minutes. This is review. This is analytical. You're drawing their attention to the patterns. You're pushing them forward with fluency. But this isn't like the end-all part of the lesson. So that's something to, well, that's really something to keep in track for the whole OG template, is that no one thing on the template is like, should take forever. You're doing a lot of little things each day, and it's building, building, building. So if this isn't perfect today, that's okay, because your next lesson, you're going to do review words again, and you're going to have other opportunities to work on it. Okay, now a review word list like this, sometimes I modify it and I actually type out the directions for children who are a little resistant to this kind of activity. So read each word, reread the whole row smoothly for a sticker. Sometimes by having the directions printed, it just seems like, oh, we got to do it. We're doing it. And then it just makes it like a finite task. So my point is he has to read each word, and then he rereads smoothly, and then, you know, those tiny little stickers, we put them there, or sometimes kids like to do their own star or smiley face or something like that. Notice I printed the vowels in red this time. Sometimes with some of my students, that's just something I do every single time. Then that's just a built-in support. On this word list, you can see how I adjusted the font so that there's spaces between the words. There's a way to do that on Word and PowerPoint, and I should open that up and show you how to do that, because anytime I'm doing these multi-syllable words where I want them to scoop between, I like to spread out the letters a little bit so that there's room for them to scoop without it being messy. So for this kind of thing, I would say, okay, why don't you look at row 1. I want you to remind me of what's the method we use to break up multi-syllable words. And I would have the student tell me, we look at the vowels, we cover them up, we see what's in between, we decide a place to break. Oh, we saw 3 consonants there. Now that's hard because is it sp or pull? I'm going to keep the S on this side because I see that that's dis, and I know that comes in words sometimes as a beginning. Oh, I only see 2 consonants there. So that's an easier place. Well, R and P are not a blend, so I will keep the PL together. Well, there's only one consonant there. Okay. All right, you've broken up row 1. Now get your tracker out, and I want you to go ahead and read those words to yourself. All right, and off they go. Now, I don't always have them break up the whole word list. Sometimes I do like just the first row and then say, let's see how you do on the rest of the word list with just using your eyes and your finger to break it up. If you make some errors, we'll get our pencil out and we'll mark it up. So usually when I'm doing syllable division and I'm in that zone with my students, I do force them to do a tiny bit by hand, but then I back off because some of them will like lose their minds if I make them do a million words broken up. They just want to read. Yet I want to make sure that I'm still like enforcing and encouraging this kind of analysis and skill, you know, in order to be able to break up the words, but I don't want to kill them with drill work and pencil work. So I do enough of it so I know that I can use the strategy. And then going forward, my point is use your fingers and your eyes. And then we'll, if we need to, we've got our pencil nearby and we'll break up a challenge word. Okay. Now, likewise, if you were going to be doing that 4 in a row, like dot paint activity or the color the chunk or the roll and read or something like that, I would add in some little bit of like fluency to that. I would add in some bit of like when they got to the end of the 4 in a row word like list, okay, great, read me all the words in column 4. And that would give them an opportunity to work on fluency or something like that. Because you don't want to just, like I said, you don't want to skip the analysis and the word work part just so that everything can be fun. So part 1 is done. That was the word list in print. Now let's think about if you're working online, what could that look like? Okay, so when I moved online in March of 2020, one of the first things that I transferred online was a roll and read template because that just transferred so well. First of all, there's lots of digital dice that you can find online so the kids can click on it and roll it, or I would just ask them to have a dice with them. And a lot of families in their tutoring kind of supply area, they just always had a dice ready, so that was ready for games. Or I would roll a dice and just tell them what it was. Or frankly, a lot of times I would just pretend to roll the dice and just call out random numbers and they would read it. And it still felt like a game. You can give the student mouse control and they can drag the thing away themselves, or you can do mouse control. They can say the number and you can do it. So the idea is that this is kind of, well, for roll and read online, I hid something underneath underneath the pictures, and that was the fun part, to see when we would find that picture. It was always in the bottom row. So one of the bottom things, whichever column, you know, we got to the bottom of first, that was fun. Is it there? Is it not? When you play in print, there's nothing hidden. You're just like stamping or crossing out the words as you read, and you're trying to see which column will win. But when you play online, you are looking for that hidden thing. So if they roll a 2, they would read the word. They roll a 4, they would read the word. They roll a 1, they read the word. And look at this one is red, so that's probably, I probably had to highlight that live in front of them and mark the vowel in red to help them. They roll it up, there we go. And, oh, I thought our hidden thing was there. No, it wasn't. And notice how I put the A in green. I think it's, oh my goodness, where is our hidden? Where is our hidden thing? Well, I don't know if I can find it, but the point is there'd be something hidden there. Okay. Now, these are cute to personalize, and it's very easy to personalize them because all you have to do is do an image search for something the child likes, get the picture to be the right size, and then copy, paste, paste. And then what I do is I highlight all of those, and look at that. It's really easy for me just to paste, and then I just copy and paste again, and then they get all lined up beautifully. That took me several weeks to figure out. I was doing them one at a time by hand for a long time. Okay, so now we have L blends here, L blends, L blends. Where's our hidden thing? There it is, and there's my little hidden token underneath. So she keeps reading her L blend word until we found our thing. So cupcakes, it looks like I've got digraphs and I hit a smiley under there, but you can see how it's just all digraphs hidden underneath. That was a lot of SH on that one. Here's one that's all undone so that you can see I hit a moose, and you can see that we're doing 2-syllable words with our controlled vowels. So if a student struggled, I often would scoop it right like that, and that would help them with the syllable division since we couldn't mark it up in person. For color the chunk, if you put it on annotate, I can give the student mouse control, and they could they didn't have dot paint, but they could kind of do something with the vowel ahead of time and mark up all the a, o, u, ows, and then they could read it. Pout, couch, foul, mouse, ouch. And so they are still able to mark and scan with their eyes to look for something. I don't only do words when I'm doing the review word activity. I like to review phrases as well. Some of my students, the review word list gets dry, and it makes more sense we need something a little bit meatier, because if I'm just doing words in isolation, I felt like that wasn't supporting them as much as like sentences would. So this is kind of ugly looking, but these are Bruins colors. So that's what my student was looking for, that Bruins icon. Don't let the dog pee on the peas. You can see that we're doing homophones here. Let's meet downtown to pick up the meat for dinner. So this is review, because when we go to spell, he needs to have had ample opportunities to see these words in context with meaning for the homophones. So by doing review sentences, we were able to, after everyone, have a quick discussion about which spelling goes with which meaning. Bingo or tic-tac-toe is a popular one too. Super easy to make a grid, and then you just pick your clip art choices. And you can see we're reviewing a sight word what, and then we have some CBC words we're reviewing as well. Another tic-tac-toe. I like to do the highlighter tool for some of our target sight words. This is just another way to hide something. So it's kind of nice to have the student use their oral language to describe the frog. So each week I would pick a different image or idea that they were really into. So just cool things. He could say the blue speckled frog, and I would pull that away. Whoop. And oh my goodness. And he would read, hold the torch while I honk the horn. And for this student, I always had everything highlighted vowel-wise for him. And then he knew to reread, hold the torch while I honk the horn. Okay, the tiny red one on a finger. My pup was born in the morning. My pup was born in the morning. And so on. And then, oh, there's the hidden picture. So that was always the treat, like what little surprise did I hide underneath? And then if we found it too early, I would take him off screen share. I would close it, and I would quickly hide this little icon again under something else. And I would just bring to front. There we go. He's hidden. And then I would share the screen again, and we would keep on playing until we got to the end. So that's cute. This is a little bit more standard. This would look more like what we do on paper, where I have a tracker for the student and I just keep dragging it down, and that helps them read. And then again, for breaking up multi-syllable words, it was helpful for me to highlight them on the screen for them, or they could annotate and do the little scooping too. Okay, sometimes I have purchased some word lists that are helpful, but again, usually they're not as specific as I want. It's just way easier to make a slide that has this grid and just use my Orton Gillingham Word Finder book to plug in the words. But you can always take a screenshot of something you own and just paste it on the page. This particular word list came with things that went with it. Okay, so that was word lists in two different ways. The paper word list and the online word list. The most important thing to remember to do when you're doing your review words is to allow for some analytical work and to allow for some rereading. So before you have the child read it, you're marking something, you're noticing something, you're talking about what your mouth does, talking about how to divide or troubleshoot. They practice read, and then you give them some feedback and some coaching for the rereading. And that is all scaffolded depending on what they need. And that's a judgment call by you. So during your observations, you'll be getting coaching from us about if your judgments are in the right zone, or perhaps you need to push a little more or back off and make things more doable so they can feel successful. Okay, thank you.